The biggest threat to society isn't greed, corruption, or even outright evil, it's stupidity. And no, I'm not talking about a lack of intelligence. Some of the most destructive people in history weren't necessarily dumb, they were just blindly convinced they were right. Take Bertrand Russell, the British philosopher and logician. He once said, "The trouble with the world is that the stupid are sure and the intelligent are full of doubt." Russell observed that the greatest danger to society isn't coming from those who don't know. It's coming from those who refuse to admit they could be wrong. And history proves him right. Look at the Salem witch trials of the 1600s. A few young girls started making bizarre accusations, and within months, an entire town lost its collective mind. People were executed based on nothing but paranoia and superstition. No real evidence, no rational thinking, just a society that had decided something was true and would not hear otherwise. This is the core of stupidity. Not lack of intelligence, but a refusal to think critically. We see it everywhere. People sharing blatantly false information online because they read it on a meme. Entire industries crashing because people blindly follow hype, like the doom bubble or the crypto crashes. Political movements where people become so emotionally invested that no amount of logic can sway them. And here's the scariest part: stupidity is contagious. Russell pointed out that stupidity thrives in groups where people stop thinking for themselves and just go along with the crowd. The more people reinforce an idea, the harder it is to question it, even if it's obviously wrong. And that's what makes stupidity more dangerous than malice. An evil person at least knows what they're doing. A stupid person, they believe they're the hero. They will destroy lives, tear apart societies, and fight tooth and nail to defend their beliefs, all while believing they're on the right side of history. So the real question is, how do you avoid becoming one of them? The real danger with stupidity isn't just that it exists, it's that it's invisible to the one who has it. You can sit down with someone who has no idea what they're talking about, present them with undeniable facts, logical explanations, even real-world proof, and it won't make a difference. Why? Because stupidity isn't about lacking knowledge. It's about being so certain you're right that new information becomes irrelevant. And once someone reaches that state, they're no longer thinking, they're just reacting. Bertrand Russell saw this firsthand in the rise of political extremism during his time. He noted that when people stop questioning, they become tools for those who know how to manipulate them: leaders, governments, corporations, influencers. There are always people who understand that an emotionally driven crowd is much easier to control than a rational one, and this has played out over and over again in history. Take the Great Depression in the 1930s. Millions of people lost everything, not because they were unintelligent, but because they blindly believed in a system they didn't understand. Banks were giving out massive loans with no backing. Investors were throwing money at anything that looked promising, and everyone kept saying, the economy will never crash. They had convinced themselves they were untouchable, until they weren't. When the market collapsed, panic set in. But instead of looking at what caused it, people needed a scapegoat. They blamed each other. They blamed foreigners. They blamed anyone but the system they had been told to trust. Sound familiar? It's the same blind faith we see today in everything, from social movements to financial markets to conspiracy theories. People don't investigate, they just believe. Now here's where it gets interesting. Stupidity isn't just a social problem, it's a biological one. Neuroscientists have studied how people process information, and they found something shocking. When someone is deeply emotionally invested in an idea, their brain treats contradictory information as a threat. Let that sink in. When a person hears something that challenges their belief system, their brain reacts the same way it would if they were in physical danger. Stress hormones are released, the fight or flight response kicks in, and instead of considering the new information, they double down on their original belief. This is why arguing with a stubborn person feels like arguing with a brick wall. You're not debating logic, you're fighting against their biology. And once you understand this, everything starts to make sense. Why some people will defend their political party no matter what. Why conspiracy theorists refuse to believe evidence even when it's overwhelming. Why cult members will sacrifice everything, even their own lives, rather than admit they were wrong. It's not just ignorance. It's not just stubbornness. It's biology working against them. And unless they actively work to fight this natural reflex, they will never escape it. So if stupidity is wired into human nature, is there any way to break free from it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. No one thinks they're the stupid one. People will go to extreme lengths to convince themselves they're right, even when they're obviously wrong. And the worst part? The more evidence you show them, the more resistant they become. Psychologists call this the backfire effect. When people are confronted with facts that contradict their beliefs, they don't reconsider, they double down. This is why debates on social media are a waste of time. No one is actually listening. They're just waiting for their turn to speak, to defend, to justify. It's not a conversation, it's a battlefield. But let's take it even deeper. Why do people get so defensive? Why do they fight so hard to protect ideas that don't actually serve them? Because stupidity is comfortable. It removes the burden of thinking. It eliminates the need for self-reflection. If you're convinced you already know the truth, you never have to question yourself. And that's a very addictive way to live. Think about it. If someone's entire identity is built around a certain belief, what happens if that belief turns out to be false? If they admit they were wrong, they have to face the fact that they wasted years believing a lie. If they acknowledge new information, they might have to rebuild their entire worldview from scratch. If they open their mind, they have to step into uncertainty, and uncertainty is terrifying. So instead, they choose the easy way out, denial. And once someone has chosen comfort over truth, nothing will change their mind. It's why cult leaders can convince followers to abandon their families. It's why propaganda works even when people know they're being manipulated. It's why companies sell products based on emotions, not logic. Because once you control someone's need for certainty, you control everything. So how do you avoid this? How do you make sure you don't fall into the same mental trap? Here's the hard truth. The only way to fight stupidity is with self-awareness. The most intelligent people aren't the ones who know everything. They're the ones who question everything, especially themselves. That means always assume you could be wrong, no matter how much you think you know. Leave room for the possibility that there's more to learn. Challenge your own beliefs regularly. If an idea makes you uncomfortable, don't ignore it. Examine it. Surround yourself with people who think differently. If everyone in your circle agrees with you, you're not learning. You're echoing. And most importantly, never let certainty replace curiosity. The moment you think you've figured it all out, you've already lost. Because the truth is, the world isn't black and white. It's not simple. It's not easy. And the second you believe you have nothing left to question, you've become exactly the kind of person this video is warning about. So ask yourself, are you thinking for yourself or just repeating what you've been told? That's the scary part. Most people never realize they've fallen into this trap. They live their entire lives believing they're in control of their thoughts, when in reality, their thoughts were handed to them, shaped by their environment, their upbringing, the media they consume, the people they surround themselves with. And yet, they'll swear they came to their conclusions independently. But how can you be sure? How do you know the opinions you hold aren't just recycled ideas you absorb from someone else? How do you separate your thoughts from the noise of the world? Here's something unsettling. When neuroscientists studied how thoughts form, they found that decisions are made before you're even aware of them. Your brain processes information, makes a choice, and then a few milliseconds later, your conscious mind decides what to do. It feels like free will, but in reality, your subconscious already made the call. Think about what that means. How many of your thoughts aren't actually yours? Take a moment and reflect on one strong opinion you have, something you'd defend if challenged. Now ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Did you analyze it from every angle? Did you explore counter-arguments? Or did you just absorb it because it felt right at the time? This is where most people stop. They get uncomfortable. Because if you dig deep enough, you might find that many of your beliefs aren't actually based on your own thinking at all. And that realization is dangerous, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's the reason why some people wake up one day and feel completely disconnected from their past selves. They start questioning everything: why they pursued a certain career, why they followed a particular religion, why they stuck to certain political beliefs. And it's not because they suddenly became smarter, it's because for the first time, they actually started thinking for themselves. And here's the twist: this process never ends. The more you examine your thoughts, the more you realize just how many of them were never really yours to begin with. So here's the real challenge. Are you willing to question everything, even the things that bring you comfort? Are you brave enough to admit that your thoughts might not be as original as you think? Because if you are, then congratulations. You're already ahead of most people. But knowing this isn't enough. What you do with this realization is what really matters. But here's where it gets tricky. Just realizing that your thoughts might not be your own doesn't automatically free you from their influence. Awareness is only step one. The real challenge is learning how to think beyond the programming you've absorbed. Most people never get that far. They assume that just because they've woken up to the fact that their beliefs were shaped by outside forces, they're now immune to manipulation. But that's the biggest mistake of all, because influence never stops. From the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep, you're constantly being shaped by the content you consume, the people you interact with, and the emotions you attach to ideas. Every video you watch, every post you read, every conversation you have, it's all reinforcing something in your mind, whether you realize it or not. This is why so many people go from blindly believing one thing to blindly believing another, without ever realizing they're still caught in the same cycle. They escape one mental prison only to walk straight into another one, convinced that this time they've figured it all out. But real independent thinking, it never stops questioning. The key isn't just rejecting old ideas, it's learning how to exist in a space of constant reevaluation. It means never letting yourself become too comfortable with certainty. It means actively seeking out perspectives that challenge your beliefs, not just the ones that confirm them. And that's not easy. In fact, it's deeply uncomfortable. Because true thinking requires humility. It requires admitting that no matter how much you learn, there will always be things you don't know. It means understanding that certainty is just an illusion we cling to for a sense of security. So if you want to break free from the trap of programmed thinking, stop looking for conclusions. Instead, start asking better questions. Not what do I believe, but why do I believe it? Not is this right or wrong, but who benefits from me thinking this way? Not do I have the right answer, but what if I'm missing something entirely? The moment you start thinking like this, you're no longer just absorbing information. You're processing it with awareness. You're no longer just reacting. You're choosing your thoughts with intention. And when you reach that level of awareness, something incredible happens. You start to see the world for what it truly is, not as a place filled with absolute truths, but as a constantly shifting landscape of ideas, perspectives, and possibilities. And in that space, you finally start thinking for yourself. But here's the final piece of the puzzle. The moment you start thinking for yourself, you become dangerous. Not in a reckless way, but in a way that disrupts the system. Because the world isn't built for independent thinkers. It thrives on people who follow the script, who never question the narrative, who stay inside the mental cages handed to them. When you break free from that, you stop being easy to manipulate. You stop falling for every trend, every political distraction, every emotionally charged argument designed to keep people divided. You start seeing through the noise, recognizing patterns, and understanding how influence works. And that is the real power of awareness. Because once you've developed the ability to think critically, to challenge your own assumptions, and to approach life with curiosity instead of certainty, you become untouchable. No one can control a mind that questions everything. So the next time you catch yourself believing something, ask yourself, did I choose this thought, or was it chosen for me? That single question alone can change the way you see everything. And if you found value in this, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think most people truly think for themselves, or are we all just products of our surroundings? Let's talk about it. And if you're ready to keep expanding your mind, make sure to subscribe, because this journey is just getting started.